Early last week, I saw a story in my local paper that my humble mountain town of Bozeman, Montana, would be host to a January 6th candlelight vigil to remember the events of that day. The event itself, not necessarily surprising, since progressive politics have been slowly taking hold in the city as people leave the coastal places they ruined to come and ruin it here. But this event did have one surprising characteristic. It was publicly advertised, it was open to public attendance, and notably, it was an open mic. Anyone who wants to share insight about that day is welcome to speak, the story in the paper said. The organizer wants to keep the event and the speeches nonpartisan, and he hopes that people of all political perspectives will join. And I thought, all political perspectives? Well, hey, that's me. So I decided on Friday night I'd grab a couple friends and head on down to the county courthouse downtown where they were hosting this event and have a listen to what I expected to be probably a cult meeting and join in on the festivities myself. When we got there, it was actually closer to an AARP meeting, something like a nursing home field trip to take a break from watching CNN all day. Seeing one of my clips, one listener described it as old Tifa. To imply violent aggression on that level would be to overstate, but as we'll see, many of the same philosophical tendencies were present. So we get to the event just before it starts. There are 20 or so people in attendance. An organizer passes out a one-page flyer of information about January 6th. I didn't find it to be wildly inaccurate or exaggerated. I think most of it was simply modified from Wikipedia, as it cites. Plus, they give us electronic candles, which I held on to as a keepsake because apparently there are insufficient reminders of January 6th, but through this flicker, I can preserve the memory. Atop the small staircase, the event organizer is the first to speak, and he gives a speech about bringing the January 6th criminals to justice.
Thanks again for coming out and for demanding that those who destroy peaceful transfer of power in our democracy on January 6th, 2021, brought to justice.
And about the evil threats to our democracy.
We come together today as we have done as a people many times in our history to recognize evil, to recognize threats to our democracy.
And of course, he punctuates with an NPC shout out to Ukraine.
We're seeing today in Ukraine incredible sacrifice by men who know the value of democracy.
And then they all join in their cringe anthem, "We Shall Overcome," for a few minutes. Overcome what exactly? I'm thinking as I listen to this. January 6th is probably the most prosecuted event in the history of our country. Generally, we didn't even prosecute Confederates after the Civil War like this. They have their president, his election certification and inauguration happened as scheduled. They say this event is to hold those who threatened that to account, but if anything, there's been too much accountability. Actually, accountability mutated into abuse through aggressive prosecutions, and that's what I wanted to talk about. Preserving our country does not mean vengeful prosecutions. We have important principles against that sort of thing, principles that themselves preserve the integrity of our country. So the host says the mic is then open to anyone. I ask to speak, and he grants permission. I don't have that part on video, but as we'll see later, the host agrees that is what happened. And before we get into it, I will emphasize that none of this presentation is intended to show that I crushed it or something. I'm not pretending that I gave some incredible speech. I didn't go to this event or make this video to troll or to own the olds or to act like I'm brave for doing it. I didn't even know who these organizers were before this event, and I certainly didn't know who would even attend anyway. I just wanted to see what happens when you go into a crowd and try to say something unpopular but true. So I did. And it was all the stuff you'd expect me to say. Calling our country a democracy is imprecise. We are a constitutional republic for philosophically important reasons.
Thomas Jefferson, in our Declaration of Independence, never mentions the word democracy. James Madison, writing in the Federalist Papers to explain the philosophy behind our Constitution, consistently warns against the tyranny of the majority. Our Constitution itself is a framework designed with checks and balances and powers reserved to the states to mitigate the excesses of majority rule.
If we care about this country and preserving it, well, then we must preserve our commitment to the rights of the individual. Those include due process rights for the accused, even those we politically hate very, very much.
How we handle these prosecutions is just as important to whether we maintain our republic as the crimes themselves are. If we betray our commitment to the rights of the individual and allow our thirst for political retribution and vengeance to take priority over our commitment to justice through fair process, we are not protecting our republic in the way we all pledge to with our presence today.
Throughout the speech, I gave some examples of mistreatment of the January 6th accused. And by the way, you can listen to the full speech and all the footage I have linked in the description so you can confirm I am not misrepresenting anything with my edits. What I wrote was about 5 minutes of speaking time, but I only got through about 2 minutes before the interruptions and the heckling started. And I say that not to victimize myself, but just to note that the rules of this event were very selectively enforced.
The republic doesn't exist to protect majority women.
And the right to vote in a democracy,
Excuse me,
constituted as a democracy.
You're welcome to speak after me. I'm not in the right forum?
Just
Gallatin County Courthouse?
Move it on.
Good, thank you.
Oh, so I'm done now? I'm done.
Was that your point?
You're the boss?
I'm not the boss. I'm just done.
I haven't finished making my points.
If you listen to my full speech, you'll probably say it was lame and not nearly as aggressive as it could have been, and that's true by design. I wanted to see how these people react to slight pushback because it proves the point. It's either full agreement or else. So I braved the heckling of Grandpa Simpson and I finished up at about twice the time it would have taken me if they had just let me speak. And then they praised themselves for their own politeness.
And now, thank everybody for being so polite and allowing you to do that.
Polite?
I agree, but I don't.
You were polite?
I first said
what?
Even though I opened my commentary with a thank you, and I closed my commentary with a thank you and a handshake.
My name is Matt Christiansen. I'm a 10-year Bozeman resident, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak about January 6th. Thank you for your time.
And of course, there was a little politeness for which to thank them anyway. The interruptions were constant. And when I returned to the audience, the politeness just escalated. A man behind me muttered something at me. So I asked for clarification of exactly what he said.
Sorry, what? I said eat shit and die. Why? Eat shit and die?
Yeah.
What? Why? I thought we were here to have everybody say their piece.
So this is not what my father fought.
Who should eat shit and die?
I'm damned if I'm going to watch a bunch of punks.
You want me to eat shit and die?
Thanks to one astute listener, I think I know what he said in that part that's unclear. It sounds like he says Marge, marred, and murdered or something like that. Or, as the listener suggests, it might just be eat shit and die in French. Just prior to that exchange, and immediately after I was done speaking, the event organizer took the mic back and started lecturing me about how I'm overlooking the chaos of January 6th. And since he then tried to say that 5 people died, my friend joined the interjection party.
That was a mob, a violent mob, and 5 people died.
Nobody died.
Brian Sicknick.
What are you talking about?
Brian Sicknick? You mean the guy that had a stroke?
What about the woman who got shot?
He was hit in the head with a fire.
Point of fact, of course, Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick died the day after January 6th of a stroke. According to the DC Medical Examiner, it was natural causes, not the result of some beating. And the host repeated the completely false claim that Sicknick was bludgeoned with a fire extinguisher. That's not true. It has never been true. The New York Times originally reported that claim, citing anonymous sources. It was never substantiated, and the Times later deleted the claim altogether because it did not happen. But since my friend reciprocated in the interruptions, he never did until they interrupted me repeatedly, by the way, the politeness then escalated again. They started shoving candles in our faces. Even though, of course, at the start of the event, the host said specifically not to do that.
You're not allowed to light your neighbor's cell phone with your candle.
And they started physically surrounding my friend with additional politeness.
Are you really going to put my father fought in World War II.
She doesn't want to
3.5 years. Roger Knight. He suffered.
There she is.
My favorite is the lady who gets in his face with a mask on, but don't worry, it's okay. She tested negative.
You're a very, very silly person. I think you should
Roger
go home.
Says the person with the
name
mask
is a brave
outside
man.
putting that in front of my
That's right,
camera.
honey. I don't want you to get
Honey.
sick. I've
Stories
been
of
exposed to
your
COVID.
parents,
I don't
your
want you to get
fathers,
sick.
Then why are you out
People
here?
who fought
Because
and died
this
for
is an important
democracy.
place to be. So far, I'm testing negative.
Amid these confrontations, my friend says that one of these men hit him or bumped him a few times with his cane, and another man pushed him. Now, I didn't see either of these incidents, and there's no clear perspective on video, but it is completely clear that the group physically surrounds him and some form of contact is made. Again, it is not to say that we were victims of a crime or something like that. It's just to say that my friend, like any sane person, did not want to be physically touched. And so he was persistent, at one point even profane, in asking them not to do that. And then the tension increased.
You really need to not touch me with your cane, sir. Yeah, you? Yeah.
Excuse me, sir.
That guy.
I'm talking.
You really need to stop touching me right the fuck now.
You just pushed me
No, I
over.
didn't.
You did.
I'm touching.
The cane attacker had his reasons, though. After all, he thought he was dealing with a member of the Nazi Party.
Well, what organization are you from?
Organization.
Yeah, Nazi Party?
Aren't you the one that was getting physical?
No.
Brown shirt over here?
And of course, the accusations then get reversed. They started the heckling, but now it's my friend who's harassing people. They initiated the physical aggression, but now it's my friend who's pushing people, even though he's had his phone up recording the entire time. So somehow he apparently pushed someone with one hand and the phone never captured any of it.
You're basically just here to bother people, aren't you? Isn't that fun? You're here to cause trouble.
I'm not going to talk to you anymore, man. You're just trying to create a hassle here.
You pushed me.
Oh, I was standing I saw it. You got kind of pushing.
As a result of these pushing accusations, the organizer then called police. He dialed 911 to deal with this emergency, in fact.
Okay, I'm calling the cops.
Please
You're
do.
disrupting a peaceful
So this
demonstration.
is not what my
I'm
father
disrupting?
fought and
Yes.
suffered.
Are the police on their way?
Lies. We're
I don't
not
know.
honoring them.
Oh, you called them, didn't you?
I called them.
And what'd they say?
And
It's 911.
Lost an
Just wondering what
election.
was going on.
Which means, of course, I got to get my hands on that 911 call. I haven't done it yet, but it should be public record. I gotta hear exactly how this emergency was described in the moment. But police then arrive and the host starts telling the officer that my friend was disruptive, even though, again, we were both completely silent and respectful until they started disrupting me.
Hi there. Is everything okay? I think so. This guy's calmed himself down. Okay.
I've calmed myself down.
Well,
I've filmed the entire thing, sir.
just as long as everybody's getting along. He's been filming. Okay. Everything. He's welcome to do that, I guess. Yeah. It was disruptive.
When I see the officer arrive, I come over to explain my perspective and listen to the host tie himself in a knot, trying to tell the officer that I was uninvited.
Hey, it certainly was not my intention to have any kind of police interaction, but I apologize if there was some sort of misconduct, but
Well, let me explain.
sure.
We were having a peaceful demonstration.
Yeah.
You came uninvited, and we allowed you to speak.
Wait. The public was invited.
The public was invited.
And you
that's
and I asked to
including
speak and you said yes.
That's what I'm saying.
But how's that uninvited?
Can we just all agree to give each other some space?
So they advertise that it's a public event at a public space with a mic open to all perspectives. I take them up on that offer, and suddenly I become an uninvited disruptor. Because of this absurdity, police only asked us to physically separate. Police saw no evidence of or even an accusation of a crime, so no further action was pursued. At that point, the speakers were finished, and so the event was over, and we left on our own accord. The entire event lasted about 40 minutes, and throughout, there were some common themes in the interaction that I want to discuss as well. First, many people were eager to engage with us, but almost nobody wanted wanted to talk ideas. They wanted to find ways to indict our character instead. They suddenly got very nativist, for example. They had to know if I'm really from Montana.
How old are you?
How old are you?
Yeah. Were you like six years old?
When did you graduate from high school?
I went to high school at Red Lodge.
Okay, well...
Does that matter, though? If I went to school
I
in
just
California,
wondered-
would that bother you?
No, I just didn't... I don't understand where you're coming from.
Well, that's what I was trying to explain.
Strange thing to ask, considering the state generally votes red. They act like it's inconceivable that a true Montanan could possibly disagree with them when most of the state does. I should have just told them I'm undocumented from Ecuador. Then I'd be not only automatically right, but they'd owe me everything they own, too. At one point, they accused my friend of posing as a military member, of stealing valor implicitly, because he was wearing a camouflage elk hunting jacket.
Hey, were you in the military?
I'm not going to answer your questions. I'm
You're
sorry
not?
about who I am.
Why not?
Why not? You embarrassed?
No, I'm actually not embarrassed about who I am.
I gave
Yeah,
I gave
why
my
you're in the
name.
military. He's just playing. He's got camo on. He's playing like he's a soldier.
So let's just.
He's never.
Soldiers don't wear camo like this.
I don't care. I don't care what you wear.
I don't care what you wear, except for when I bring it up to try to discredit you. And if you're wondering, as a friend of mine noted, no, I was not accused of stealing lumberjack valor with my typical plaid flannel look. The jacket my friend was wearing is very similar to this one. Of course, the military doesn't own camo anyway, but this isn't even a military camo pattern at all. I guess I'll have to head down to the local outdoor shop and inform them that they are facilitating a fraud against our veterans. The entire event was filled with bizarre, incoherent notions of free speech. Of course, several speakers claimed to value it, emphasizing the importance of open dialogue and freely competing ideas.
It is the freedom to reach out to others who disagree with us, the freedom to reach understanding.
I hope that we can have conversation together someday, that we could sit down and actually talk about these things.
They say these things while simultaneously lecturing me that my perspective is not welcome here.
I can't well wish? Why is that the wrong forum?
You trying to intimidate people with your phone, or what are you doing?
This is a gathering for a purpose, and you came here specifically to be contrary to the purpose
I
of the
spoke
gathering.
specifically to the purpose, and I was told that anyone is allowed to speak.
Not. Yes, you did.
And the first speaker said all perspectives are welcome.
Part of that is based on some bizarre notion of ownership, that they are entitled to the county courthouse in a way that I, as a fellow Gallatin County citizen, somehow am not. Here's the event organizer trying to reframe the space as private before stopping himself, realizing how plainly ridiculous that is.
Nobody invited you here to film us. We did not give you permission to do that.
Just need to stay together.
This is a county courthouse.
No,
this
you're
is a
outside
public
the
space.
county courthouse.
Yeah, in the public space.
So you're
there's
here
no
disrupting.
expectation of privacy in public.
You're here disrupting a private.
Not a public gathering. Yeah.
And we let your guys speak.
So they love free speech, just not at private gatherings on public property. And there is just one more rule. The free speech has to be factual. Mine wasn't, apparently.
I thought the fundamental premise of a democracy, as we've characterized it, is all perspectives are welcome.
It's all perspectives are welcome, but it's very helpful if people are careful that their perspectives
You mean it's
are
very
based on
helpful
facts.
if I shut up?
No, it's very helpful if people's perspectives actually have facts.
What are the factual? Give me your email. I'll send you citations for everything I said.
Oh my dear child, so much of what you said
Insults
was bullshit.
don't. Insults don't. Those aren't arguments.
When did I insult you?
You called me a child, and you said what I said is
Honey,
bullshit.
compared to me, everybody.
Honey, again, I don't need to be dismissed with these titles. I don't do that to you.
Now, I'll defend every word I said on the facts, but to the philosophy, how do we even find the facts if not for freely comparing the evidence and the ideas to find them? In other words, to protect the facts, we must protect the right to be wrong. It is incoherent to say otherwise, unless you believe that the truth is delivered from some high council instead of discovered through investigation and debate. But based on her mask, I will speculate comfortably that is exactly what she believes. Though we don't get the truth through investigation, We get it from our masters. On a final point of analysis, I cannot overstate just how revealing calling 911 in this situation actually is. As I mentioned earlier, I attended and participated in this event with intentional respect, intentionally not trolling, intentionally sincere, intentionally speaking to the point of this event. So there could be no other excuses about why they chose to crack down on us. They view state power as the proper way to deal with people who disagree with them, state force as the proper response to dissent. That point was definitively proven. If they'll call the cops on you for saying or believing things they don't like, there is no limit to the force they'll exercise to control you otherwise, or to remove you from the spaces they claim. Not all, though, and I do mean that sincerely. I wouldn't be completely honest in my presentation if I didn't acknowledge that at least a few of the attendees did show good faith.
I'm afraid I don't have a lot of sympathy for people that showed up that day and raised hell, trying to undermine the election. I just don't.
I agree that crimes ought to be prosecuted, but let's try some common ground here. Do we agree that they're entitled to due process as any accused person?
Absolutely. I mean, I've been in jail, I've been arrested, and I didn't get due process either.
Well, that's
but
wrong
I dealt
too.
with it.
And so he would be defending you.
That's
the point. Is
that?
he would defend you in that circumstance.
Would you?
Absolutely.
In my opinion,
Many people disagreed with you.
Right? Maybe they. Well,
I think
I was told by a guy to eat shit and die. So I think he disagrees.
I think you.
Progressing conversation.
I assume unintentionally misjudged people's patience. Your message was complex and long.
Maybe.
And that was inappropriate for this kind of setting, I think.
If it's, to be fair, I didn't know what to expect, but I want to be clear in my ideas and presentation, and perhaps that wasn't presented well, and I can fully grant that point. I do take issue with an open mic being presented as a forum for anyone to voice their perspective being met with heckling. I wouldn't say that I was threatened, but a guy did say really unkind things to me.
Yeah, it would have been nice if they'd established some ground rules.
But as a whole, driven primarily by the event host, this was a group of people organized only to espouse their love of freedom until the slightest dose of freedom dared disagree. Then freedom is over, and it's state crackdown time. And again, I have the full unedited video from both my perspective and my friend's perspective linked in the description for your viewing so that you can see I'm not grossly misrepresenting or omitting anything. And as a last request, please do not attempt to contact any of these people. I wanted to make my point in a respectful way, so it's as strong as possible, free from any abuses or misconduct, and any harassment after the fact is not only rude for its own sake, but it also diminishes that effort. Besides, it's not necessary. I promise you the point was made. I have the evidence, or I will, but it'll have to wait a year. It will be when this event doesn't happen next year, or if it does, when it's on private property instead, and the guest list and the speakers are strictly vetted. If you want to push bullshit in public, that's fine. Just expect and accept a little fair pushback. They got the point. Rather than reconsider the bullshit or openly engage to defend it from challenge, I suspect they'll just scurry into hiding instead. Or maybe next year, January 6th, falls on bingo night anyway, and other things take priority. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on Minds. That is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to coming out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Goodbye.